The airplane moved smoothly above the clouds as passengers settled into their seats. Soft engine sounds filled the cabin, mixed with quiet conversations and seatbelt clicks. Many travelers closed their eyes, hoping to rest before landing. Some opened laptops, while others scrolled through phones. The journey felt normal and calm at first. No one expected the tension that would soon rise. In the first business row, a powerful company leader sat upright with perfect posture. Her clothes were neat, and her bag was placed carefully under the seat. She opened a folder and reviewed notes for an important meeting. Her face showed focus and control built over many years. Silence was her comfort zone. She depended on order to feel ready. A few rows behind her, a single father adjusted his position while holding his baby. The child rested against his chest, small and warm. The father checked the baby's blanket and smiled softly. His eyes showed tiredness from long nights and little sleep. Still, he looked calm and steady. Caring for his child had taught him patience. As the plane reached cruising height, the baby began to cry. At first, the sound was low and unsure. Then it grew stronger and filled the cabin space. Heads slowly turned from different directions. Some passengers sighed while others shifted uncomfortably. The peaceful mood began to break. The father gently rocked the baby back and forth. He whispered soft words close to the baby's ear. His hand moved slowly in a calming rhythm. He stayed relaxed even as the crying continued. He had faced this many times before. The company leader paused her reading and looked up. Her pen stopped moving across the page. She took a slow breath and tried to ignore the noise. Her eyes returned to the notes, but her focus was gone. Each cry pulled her attention away. Her jaw tightened slightly. Around them, reactions varied. A man across the aisle put on headphones. A woman near the window shook her head quietly. Some people stared at the father with judgment. Others showed sympathy with gentle looks. The cabin felt smaller as tension spread. A flight attendant walked down the aisle with careful steps. She stopped near the father and bent slightly. Her voice was soft and respectful. She asked if everything was all right. The father nodded and smiled politely. He explained in a low voice that the baby was uncomfortable. The attendant offered warm water and a toy. The father thanked her and tried again to soothe his child. Still, the crying did not stop. The sound echoed between the seats. The company leader closed her folder slowly. She pressed her lips together and leaned back. She was used to controlling situations. Meetings stopped when she spoke. Rooms fell silent when she entered. Here, she had no such power. She glanced back over her shoulder. Her eyes landed on the father and the crying baby. For a moment, her expression showed frustration. Then something else appeared, something softer. She turned forward again but could not shake the feeling. Minutes passed, and the crying continued. The leader's shoulders stiffened with stress. Her thoughts jumped between numbers, plans, and noise. She felt embarrassed by her irritation. Still, the sound pushed against her nerves. Behind her, the father stood up carefully. He held the baby against his chest and walked slowly down the aisle. His steps were gentle to avoid disturbing others. He did not rush or panic. He simply moved with purpose. Passengers watched him quietly. Some leaned away to give space. Others followed his movement with their eyes. The baby cried louder for a moment, then paused briefly. The father continued walking. The flight attendants noticed him and stepped aside. One of them asked if he needed help. He shook his head politely and thanked her. His focus stayed on his child. As he walked, he stopped near the front section. The company leader looked up as he approached. Their eyes met again. She expected him to pass by. Instead, he stopped. The father smiled gently and spoke in a calm voice. He apologized for the noise without sounding ashamed. He said he understood how hard it could be. His tone was respectful and steady. The leader felt caught off guard. She nodded slightly but said nothing. She had expected annoyance or tension. Instead, she felt an unexpected wave of calm from his presence. The baby cried again, louder than before. The father shifted the baby's position and began a soft humming sound. It was slow and low, almost like a memory. The sound was warm and steady. Some nearby passengers noticed the change. The baby's cries began to weaken. The sharp sounds softened into small sobs. The father kept humming without stopping. His eyes stayed focused on his child. The company leader watched closely. She had never seen something like this in such a place. The cabin felt quieter even before the baby fully calmed. The humming filled the space gently. The baby slowly relaxed and rested against his father's chest. His breathing became steady. The crying stopped completely. A quiet silence followed. Passengers exchanged surprised looks. A few smiled softly. Someone let out a quiet breath of relief. The flight attendants paused, watching with respect. The father waited a moment to be sure. Then he nodded politely to the leader and turned to return to his seat. The leader remained still, her eyes following him. Her mind felt unsettled in a new way. As the father walked back, the cabin returned to its calm state. The sound of engines felt peaceful again. People returned to their screens and books. But something had shifted. The company leader sat quietly without opening her folder. Her thoughts were no longer on meetings. She felt something she had not expected. It was not embarrassment or relief. It was curiosity. She realized she had just witnessed something powerful. Not loud or forceful, but steady and human. It challenged her understanding of strength. She leaned back and stared ahead, thinking deeply. The father sat down and adjusted the blanket around his sleeping child. He closed his eyes for a moment and took a slow breath. He did not notice the impact he had made. For him, it was just another moment of being a parent. The plane continued forward through the sky. The clouds outside glowed softly in the light. Inside, the silence felt different than before. It carried respect instead of tension. The company leader finally opened her folder again. But the words on the page felt less important. Her thoughts stayed with the moment she had seen. She knew something inside her had changed. She looked back one more time at the father and child. Her face softened as she did. For the first time that day, she smiled quietly. The flight moved forward steadily while most passengers returned to their routines. Some typed on laptops, others rested with eyes closed. The earlier tension had faded, leaving behind a calm mood. The quiet felt deeper than before. It was the kind of silence that made people think. The company leader sat still, holding her folder without opening it. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the moment near the aisle. She had seen confidence before in offices and meetings. This confidence felt different and quiet. It came without words or demand. She looked around the cabin slowly, noticing details she had ignored earlier. Faces looked tired but human. Everyone seemed to carry their own story. She wondered when she had stopped seeing that. Her chest felt heavy with reflection. The father remained seated with his baby asleep against him. His arms stayed steady, protecting the small life he held. He adjusted the blanket gently to keep the baby warm. His face showed peace mixed with exhaustion. He looked like someone who had learned to live with responsibility. A flight attendant passed by again and smiled at him. She whispered that he had handled the situation well. The father nodded politely and thanked her. He did not seek praise or attention. For him, caring was natural. At the front, the leader finally closed her folder and placed it aside. She leaned back and exhaled slowly. The meeting she had worried about no longer felt urgent. Her mind replayed the calm humming sound. It stayed with her like a memory. She remembered her own childhood, filled with quiet rooms and busy parents. Success had always been the focus in her life. Comfort came from achievements, not people. Seeing the father had opened a door she rarely touched. It felt unfamiliar but real. Minutes later, the captain's voice filled the cabin with a gentle update. The flight would land soon and weather was clear. Passengers began preparing their belongings. The leader straightened her jacket but stayed thoughtful. She was no longer in a rush. The baby stirred slightly but did not wake. The father rocked gently just in case. His eyes stayed alert and caring. He checked the baby's face and smiled. These small moments meant everything to him. The leader glanced back again, this time without tension. She studied the father from a distance. There was no sign of pride or performance in him. He simply existed in his role fully. That honesty touched her deeply. As landing approached, the plane slowly descended. The lights dimmed slightly, and the engines softened. Passengers fastened seatbelts and adjusted seats. The cabin felt united by shared quiet. Everyone waited patiently. The leader felt an urge she did not fully understand. She wanted to speak to the father. This was unusual for her. She rarely started conversations without purpose. Now, purpose felt emotional instead of professional. When the plane touched down, applause echoed softly. People smiled with relief and gathered their bags. The baby remained asleep through the landing. The father looked relieved and thankful. His day had been long already. The leader stood when the seatbelt sign turned off. She waited instead of rushing forward. This surprised the people behind her. She glanced back and saw the father preparing to stand. Her heart beat faster for reasons she could not explain. Passengers slowly moved into the aisle. The leader stepped aside and waited. When the father approached, she spoke softly. Her voice lacked authority and carried sincerity. She thanked him for what he had done earlier. The father looked surprised and slightly confused. He listened quietly and nodded. He said it was nothing special and smiled politely. He explained that he only did what felt right. His words were simple and honest. The leader felt something shift inside her. She realized how often she had dismissed simple acts. She told him that his calm had helped more than he knew. Her eyes showed respect. This was not a business exchange. The father thanked her again and adjusted his bag. He prepared to leave without expecting more conversation. To him, the moment was passing. He did not realize the weight of his presence. He moved with humility. They exited the plane together into the bright terminal. Noise and movement returned around them. People rushed in different directions. The leader slowed her steps to stay near him. She felt drawn by curiosity. She asked if he traveled often with the baby. He replied that life required it. He shared that he raised the child alone. His voice remained calm, without sadness or pride. It was simply truth. The leader listened carefully, something she rarely did without interruption. She felt admiration grow quietly. She realized how narrow her world had been. Meetings and numbers felt small compared to this reality. As they walked, she shared that she struggled with control. She admitted the crying had overwhelmed her, saying this felt strange yet freeing. She had never spoken like this to a stranger. The words came easily. The father smiled kindly and said it was understandable. He explained that he once felt the same way. Parenthood had taught him patience slowly. He spoke without teaching or judging. His tone stayed gentle. They reached the baggage area and stopped. The crowd moved around them in waves. The leader felt reluctant to end the moment. She thanked him again sincerely. Her eyes showed gratitude. The father nodded and wished her well. He turned to leave, focused on his child. He believed the encounter was over. For him, the day would continue with duties and care. The leader watched him walk away. She felt changed in a way she could not fully explain. Something important had been awakened inside her. She stood still as people rushed past. She realized that true strength was not loud. It did not command or demand. It held steady when things were difficult. That lesson stayed with her deeply. As she finally walked away, she carried more than a brief memory. She carried a new understanding of humanity. The flight had delivered more than travel. It had delivered perspective. The airport slowly emptied as travelers moved toward exits and transport lines. The company leader walked alone for a moment, holding her bag tightly. Her steps were slower than usual. Her mind replayed the flight again and again. Each memory felt clear and meaningful. She entered a quiet lounge area and sat down near a window. Outside, planes moved across the runway with steady motion. She usually enjoyed watching them with focus and control. Today, her thoughts were softer and deeper. Her chest felt full of reflection. She thought about how she had built her life. Long hours, strong decisions, and little room for weakness. She believed this was the only way to survive at the top. The flight had challenged that belief. Calm strength had looked very different. The image of the single father stayed with her. His tired eyes, steady arms, and gentle voice returned to her mind. He had not asked for attention or praise. He had simply acted with care. That simplicity felt powerful. She realized how rarely she allowed space for emotion. Even when tired, she pushed forward. Even when overwhelmed, she hid it. Seeing the father had made her feel seen without words. That realization stayed with her. Meanwhile, the father reached the pickup area outside the airport. He carefully adjusted the baby in his arms. The child woke briefly and looked up at him. The father smiled softly and whispered calm words. His focus stayed on the child alone. A car arrived and stopped near him. He placed the baby inside gently and secured the seat. His movements were slow and careful. He closed the door softly and sat beside the child. He leaned back and rested his head for a moment. The driver glanced at him through the mirror and smiled. The father returned the smile politely. He felt tired but peaceful. The long flight was over. Another day of responsibility continued ahead. As the car moved, the father looked out the window. He thought briefly about the woman from the plane. He hoped she felt better now. Then his thoughts returned to his child. That was always where they belonged. Back inside the terminal, the leader stood and prepared to leave. Her phone buzzed with messages and reminders. She glanced at them but did not respond immediately. For once, urgency did not control her. She placed the phone back in her bag. She walked outside into fresh air and sunlight. The noise of the city greeted her. Cars moved quickly and people hurried past. She stood still for a moment, breathing deeply. This pause felt new and refreshing. She realized she wanted to change something. Not her career, but her approach to life. She wanted to listen more and react less. She wanted to allow space for humanity. This thought felt hopeful rather than scary. Days later, the leader sat in a large meeting room. Screens showed charts and numbers. People waited for her direction. She noticed how tense everyone looked. For the first time, she saw it clearly. She began the meeting with a calm tone. She spoke slower than usual. She asked how everyone was doing. The room felt surprised by the question. Some faces softened immediately. As discussions continued, she listened carefully. She allowed pauses and encouraged voices that were often quiet. The meeting moved differently than before. It felt more balanced and thoughtful. Results improved without pressure. Her team noticed the change quickly. They felt respected and valued. Productivity grew naturally. Trust began to build in ways it never had before. The leader saw the impact clearly. That evening, she returned home earlier than usual. She cooked a simple meal and sat alone at the table. Silence filled the room, but it no longer felt empty. She smiled quietly to herself. She thought again of the father and his baby. She realized she might never see him again. Still, his influence remained strong. One small moment had created a lasting shift. That amazed her. Across town, the father put his baby to sleep. The room was quiet and warm. He sat beside the crib and watched the child breathe. His heart felt full despite the challenges. Love guided every choice he made. He did not know his actions had changed someone else's path. He did not expect anything from the world. For him, showing care was enough. That humility was his strength. Weeks passed, and the leader continued to grow. She practiced patience even when things felt difficult. She remembered the humming sound from the flight. It reminded her to stay grounded. She began supporting family-friendly policies at work. She encouraged understanding and balance. Her decisions reflected empathy rather than control. People respected her more than ever. One afternoon, she saw a man with a baby at a park near her office. The sight made her pause. She smiled warmly and continued walking. The memory stayed gentle and strong. Life moved forward for both of them. Their paths did not cross again. Yet the connection remained meaningful. A brief encounter had left a lasting mark. The leader understood something important now. True impact does not always come from power or position. Sometimes it comes from quiet moments of care. That lesson stayed with her forever. The flight that once caused stress had delivered clarity. The crying that once felt unbearable had become a teacher. Strength had revealed itself in a new form. Calm, patient, and deeply human. And somewhere in the world, a single father continued his journey. He carried love, patience, and quiet courage with him. Without knowing it, he had left a room full of people speechless. Not by force, but by kindness. The weeks after the flight passed quickly for both the leader and the father. The leader returned to her busy schedule, traveling to meetings, reviewing reports, and making decisions. Yet something inside her had changed. Each day she found herself noticing small details, listening more carefully, and responding with patience. The lessons from the flight stayed with her. She began to approach her team differently. Instead of pushing hard for results, she allowed space for discussion and thought. Employees felt more comfortable sharing ideas. Their creativity grew, and collaboration improved naturally. The leader noticed how simple acts of understanding could transform a workplace. Her perspective on leadership had expanded. Meanwhile, the father continued his daily routine. Caring for his child remained his first priority. He took early morning walks to help the baby sleep, prepared meals, and organized bedtime routines. Each task was done with care and consistency. Though the days were long and tiring, he felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. One morning, the leader found herself thinking of the father again. She remembered his calm presence and the way he soothed the baby. She wondered how rare such patience was in the world. His actions had left a mark on her thinking, showing her a form of strength that was gentle but powerful. At work, she implemented small but meaningful changes. Meetings started with a few minutes of check-in to allow people to express how they felt. She encouraged her team to listen fully before responding. Productivity improved, but more importantly, morale and trust grew. People felt valued and understood. The father, unaware of the influence he had caused, continued to face daily challenges. One day, the baby became fussy and refused to sleep. The father remained calm, humming softly while walking around the room. The baby gradually relaxed and drifted off. The father smiled quietly, proud of the trust he had built. The leader reflected on her own childhood as she implemented these changes. She realized how often she had equated silence and control with success. Now she saw that listening, patience, and care could create a stronger, more balanced outcome. The memory of the flight guided her in small but significant ways. At home, the father enjoyed quiet moments with his child. He read books softly, sang lullabies, and shared small stories. The bond between them strengthened with each passing day. He did not need recognition or praise for his efforts. He understood that consistency and love were the most important gifts he could give. One afternoon, the leader hosted a team workshop. She shared personal experiences about patience, listening, and understanding. Employees responded with curiosity and respect. Her story inspired new ways to approach challenges. The father's influence, though unknown to him, had reached far beyond the flight cabin. The father faced a day when errands seemed endless. He pushed a stroller through crowded streets while carrying groceries in his other hand. A passerby smiled at him, acknowledging his care and effort. He returned the smile politely, knowing that his responsibility was not about recognition. Every small action mattered. Meanwhile, the leader continued to navigate complex decisions. Yet she noticed a difference in how she approached pressure. She allowed herself brief pauses, reflecting on people rather than just tasks. She realized that true leadership included empathy, patience, and understanding. The memory of the father guided her actions. Evenings at home were special for the father. He bathed the baby, sang softly, and tucked him into bed. He watched the child sleep peacefully, feeling contentment in small victories. Each day reinforced the importance of care and consistency. Life was challenging, but moments like these made it meaningful. The leader, despite a busy travel schedule, found moments to pause. She observed colleagues with renewed awareness. She listened to their challenges, offered guidance, and allowed space for expression. Work felt more human and less transactional. The lessons from a single flight continued to influence her daily life. One morning, the father took the baby to the park. Sunlight filtered through trees as the child laughed and played. The father watched with gentle attention, aware that each moment shaped the child's growth. Others at the park noticed his calm and respectful presence. Some smiled, inspired by the quiet strength he displayed. The leader visited a conference in a new city. She watched attendees interact, noticing who listened and who dominated conversations. She compared these patterns with her own team, thinking about how patience and calm could improve outcomes. Her perspective continued to evolve. At home, the father read a story to the baby. The child listened intently, eyes wide with curiosity. The father paused to answer questions and encourage imagination. He understood that guidance required patience and care. Every interaction built trust and connection. Back at work, the leader received a challenging report. Instead of reacting quickly, she paused to review details and listen to her team. She implemented thoughtful solutions that balanced efficiency with understanding. The results surpassed expectations. The quiet influence of the father's example continued to guide her decisions. The father faced unexpected challenges when the baby fell ill briefly. He stayed awake through the night, comforting and monitoring closely. He remained calm and methodical, reassuring the child without panic. His patience made the child feel safe. The father knew that small steady actions created big impacts. The leader noticed that her meetings and projects now ran more smoothly. Her team trusted her and each other. She encouraged dialogue and valued human connection. Efficiency and empathy coexisted in ways she had never thought possible. The flight had been a turning point, and the memory of the father remained her guide. One evening, the father and child watched the sunset from their window. The sky turned warm shades of orange and pink. He held the child close, sharing soft words and quiet observation. Moments like these reminded him why patience and love were essential. Life's simple gifts carried the deepest meaning. The leader returned home after a long day of work. She reflected on the many changes she had made, both personally and professionally. She realized that small acts of care could create powerful ripples. The memory of the father's gentle strength stayed with her. It reminded her that true impact often comes quietly. As weeks turned into months, the father continued his life steadily. Work, parenting, and daily responsibilities shaped his days. He faced challenges with calm determination. Each day reinforced the values of patience, consistency, and love. His influence, though unseen by many, left lasting impressions. The leader continued to grow in her understanding of humanity. She encouraged others to act with empathy, to listen deeply, and to value the quiet strength in people. Her actions inspired her team to act similarly. Leadership became not only about results but also about connection. One sunny afternoon, the father pushed the stroller through a small neighborhood park. Children laughed and played around him. Parents exchanged smiles as they watched him care for his child. He felt contentment and quiet pride. He understood the importance of small, steady efforts. The leader, walking through a busy office corridor, paused briefly to observe interactions. She noticed subtle acts of care and patience among her team. She smiled quietly, thinking about the lessons she had learned. Her world had expanded beyond meetings and numbers. People mattered more than ever. At home, the father tucked the baby into bed, singing softly. The child slept peacefully, trusting in his care. The father stayed for a moment, watching the rise and fall of his chest. He understood that calm, steady attention was more powerful than any achievement. Life's simplest acts created the deepest impact. The leader concluded another successful day, grateful for a small but profound lesson she had learned. The memory of the father and his quiet strength continued to guide her decisions. She understood that leadership, patience, and humanity could exist together. The plane ride had changed her life in ways she never expected. The father continued his life with steadfast dedication. He faced challenges, celebrated small victories, and cared deeply for his child. He never sought recognition or praise. The lessons he lived by were simple but profound. His calm presence left a ripple of influence far beyond what he could see. Both their lives continued on separate paths, yet the connection from that flight remained powerful. A single act of patience had shaped understanding, changed perspectives, and influenced behavior in ways neither could fully measure. The world felt different for both of them because of one small, human moment of care. The story of that flight, the baby, the father, and the company leader became a quiet reminder of what mattered most. Strength was not always loud. Leadership was not always commanding. True impact was often patient, gentle, and deeply human. The lessons from that day would stay with them forever. The father and his child grew together, learning, laughing, and navigating life. The company leader applied lessons in her personal and professional world. Both continued their journeys enriched by a moment that had seemed ordinary but proved extraordinary. Life moved forward, carrying quiet courage, compassion, and understanding as lasting legacies.